The tension starts the moment a couple of officers stop a man, asking for his ID without much explanation. It's a scene we've all seen before. Uniformed authority expecting instant compliance. But what happens when someone knows their rights and calmly pushes back? In this episode of *ID Refusal*, we witness a bold yet respectful exchange where the law takes center stage, not intimidation. The man stands firm, asking the officers a simple but powerful question. Am I being detained? Their responses, and the back and forth that follows, make it clear this isn't going to be an ordinary stop. With cameras rolling, the situation escalates into a quiet yet riveting standoff. Who's in the right? Will the officers hold their ground, or will the man's understanding of the law leave them speechless? Stick around for this eye-opening encounter that challenges authority and reveals the power of knowing your rights. The officers exchange a quick glance, clearly unprepared for the calm confidence in the man's voice. We just need to see some ID. One of them insists, their tone firm but not entirely convincing. The man doesn't waver. I'm happy to cooperate if you can tell me what law I've broken. He replies, his voice steady. The camera captures every second of the exchange, the tension thickening as passers-by slow down to watch. The officers avoid answering directly, instead repeating their request for identification. It's a classic move, one that often works on people unfamiliar with their rights. But not this time. If I'm not being detained, am I free to go? The man asks, his words cutting through the air like a knife. The officers hesitate, their authority quietly being tested. The question lingers unanswered, leaving viewers wondering, how will this play out? The silence hangs heavy for a moment, broken only by the sound of cars passing in the background. One officer steps forward, his body language tense but measured. We're conducting an investigation, he says, trying to regain control of the situation. But the man doesn't budge. I understand, officer, but unless you have reasonable suspicion that I've committed a crime, I'm not required to provide ID. Isn't that correct? The officer pauses, clearly weighing his next move. His partner shifts uneasily, glancing around as if searching for a way to diffuse the growing crowd of curious onlookers. Meanwhile, the man remains calm, his hands visible at his sides, his tone polite but unwavering. From the outside, it looks like a simple encounter, but beneath the surface, it's a battle of rights versus authority. Every second feels like a game of chess. One wrong move could change everything. The lead officer exhales slowly, his patience clearly thinning. If you're not going to cooperate, we may have to escalate this, he says, his voice carrying a warning. But the man doesn't flinch. Instead, he takes a small step back, his calm demeanor a sharp contrast to the tension in the air. Escalate? He asks, his eyebrows slightly raised. For what? Exercising my rights. The officer's jaw tightens, and his partner seems torn between stepping in or staying silent. A few people in the crowd pull out their phones, quietly recording the interaction. The man notices but keeps his focus on the officers. If I've done something wrong, just tell me. He continues, his tone steady. But if not, I'd like to be on my way. For a moment, it feels like time freezes. The officers exchange another glance, their authority now questioned in full view of an audience. What will they do next? Just as the tension seems to peak, a voice breaks through from the crowd. He's right, you know. You can't demand ID without reasonable suspicion. The officers glance toward the source, a bystander holding their phone, clearly live-streaming the situation. The ripple effect is immediate. More onlookers step closer, murmuring among themselves, their curiosity turning into quiet support for the man standing his ground. The lead officer's face hardens as the pressure mounts. "We're just doing our job," he insists, his tone sharper now. But the man doesn't let up. "And I respect that, officer," he says, his voice unwavering. "But your job doesn't give you the right to ignore the law." The second officer, who has stayed mostly silent, finally speaks up. "Let's call this in," he mutters under his breath, loud enough for the camera to catch. The crowd shifts uneasily. Is this their way of backing down or doubling down? The lead officer steps aside, radio in hand, speaking low enough that his words can't be fully heard. The crowd watches closely, tension hanging in the air. The man remains calm, standing firm as the second officer fidgets with his belt, clearly unsure of how to proceed. After a moment, the lead officer returns, his expression unreadable. "You're free to go," he says flatly, his voice cutting through the murmurs of the crowd. The man pauses, as if to confirm what he just heard. "So no crime, no detention, and no ID required?" he asks, his tone polite but pointed. The officer nods curtly, avoiding eye contact. As the man begins to walk away, a voice from the radio crackles, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Negative on ID request. Stand down." The officers exchange quick, almost embarrassed glances as the crowd erupts into scattered applause. But just as the man disappears into the distance, a bystander steps forward, revealing they're a lawyer, and they've been recording everything. "I'll be in touch," they say quietly, leaving the officers visibly unsettled as the scene fades. As the crowd slowly disperses, there's a quiet buzz of conversation about what just unfolded. Some people shake their heads at the officers' actions, while others discuss the importance of knowing your rights. The man, now out of sight, leaves behind a powerful reminder of how calm confidence and understanding the law can turn the tables in these situations. The officers return to their patrol car, their frustration evident. They avoid eye contact with a lingering bystander, the lawyer, who's still holding their phone, a knowing look on their face. The entire interaction, from start to finish, is now captured and ready to spark a larger conversation online. This encounter wasn't just about one person refusing to show ID. It highlighted a bigger issue: the balance between authority and accountability. For the viewers at home, it's a moment to reflect, because knowing your rights isn't just powerful, it's necessary.